Hello there. Welcome back to the Agostinho Zinga show with me, your host, Agostinho Zinga, and this is episode number 328. No, 328? No, 329? 329, I think. I think it's 329. 329? 329? I think so. Nuevo? Whoa, I think so. Whatever episode it is, hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are doing fine, wherever you may be. It's now the weekend. It's Saturday afternoon, wherever I am in London, right? Undisclosed location, secret, wink, wink, hush, hush. Keep it on the down low, right? Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and all that malarkey. Hope you guys are feeling well. Hope you guys are feeling great. I'm feeling amazing, as you can tell. I've just had my cheat meal, right, which consisted of loads of processed foods like chocolates and pastries and stuff. And I'm just feeling nice, but I'm also feeling a little bit sickly. That's what happens when you have an actual good dieting week, right? When you actually get on dieting and you're actually committed to it and you make the necessary changes to your lifestyle in order to lose the pounds and to get quicker and faster and stronger, you sometimes develop new habits, right? New eating habits. Your tongue starts to become a little bit more sensitive to the whole processed sugar. So now I'm feeling a little bit ill. I'm feeling like I could barf in my mouth, but I don't want to do that on camera and I don't want to do that via my microphone because it's brand new and I spent a bit of money on it. So yeah, that's my information regarding myself. TMI, but who cares? It's Saturday afternoon. Better TMI is the best thing in order to kind of start your weekend in the best possible way. Hope you guys are feeling okay. Hope you haven't woken up with some sort of weird hangover and your mind is foggy and shit. I don't know. People are still probably drinking beers in it during lockdown, I would imagine, right? You probably are. You probably have consumed various amounts of alcohol or copious amounts. I think a lot of people are doing that annoying thing. No, I think some people are some annoying people are taking part in this extracurricular activities where they bake bread, right? They make sourdough breads. They make themselves cocktails at home and all that sort of malarkey to somehow replicate their escapades when things were normal, which I find really disturbing and really annoying. But I get it. Understand. We've all got our things that we're doing. I'm spending most of my time reading books about neoliberalism, so I get it, right? My stuff is boring. Your stuff is more fun. Understand that. But yeah, I assume you're just probably drinking throughout the weekend and getting smashed. I haven't. I've taken off the month of alcohol. Actually, I've not really said it out loud, but I've just kind of decided, you know what? I don't really need to be drinking. I don't really drink that much anyway at home for the most part. If I have a bottle, I'll just be sipping it every other day here and there. But I'm sure when you add it up in totality, it probably is a lot of alcohol in it. A sip a day probably goes a long way to making you some kind of level of functioning alcoholic. So I've done that. I put that to one side. Probably going to get back on it with the old alcohol after this month is over. That should be when I assume most of the pubs are going to be reopening in the UK. I've seen a report. I'm going to actually speak about it later. There's a bit of news about some pub chain deciding that, they've had enough. They're just going to open on the 4th of July regardless because the government's been quite slow to react, isn't it? I think I mentioned it before in the podcast. We shouldn't be surprised, isn't it? I guess now we have more information. We have more data. We have the benefit of time. I think we will come to realization that the whole lockdown thing might have been an error in a way that, in how it was enforced, right? I think the general consensus from the people that I've been reading and all the leading scientists and virologists and whoever they may be, people have more experience than I, have been saying that the actual better tactic would be, if you're going to commit to a lockdown, commit to a really strict one, in maybe similar to what Italy done after the huge spike in deaths, and what Spain followed, and what New Zealand did, and what South Korea did, where you essentially mandate people can't leave their house after a set amount of time. You have a lot of times people to then leave their houses for only necessary things like shopping or whatever it may be, but in general just a really strict lockdown for a short period of time, and then you slowly ease things up again. You slowly start opening stuff back up again, little by little, so that people can make sure their businesses don't fall by the wayside, people's jobs don't disappear forever. That's usually the best way to handle it. I think the prolonged lockdown is just impossible to do, especially in a Western country. People have their rights, people have their own things that they want to do. People, for the large majority of people who are working service industry jobs, it's a really bleak time. So to think that you're gonna have the whole entire population comply to like a 6-month lockdown, that is really, really unrealistic. So now, with the benefit of hindsight, that is the case, but we didn't know beforehand, did it? But again, no, what I basically meant was that the government was quick to lock down, but they don't really seem to have they don't seem to have the foggiest idea what to do in terms of reopening. I even saw this really weird story that supposedly Mark Cuban, right, the American billionaire who's an owner of a basketball team, I forgot which one it is, but he's also one of the judges or mentors on Shark Tank, right? Really famous American businessman. Supposedly, he went out of his own way. I'm assuming it's his own state, Texas or something, right? He went out of his own way to basically conduct a bit of research on the local businesses in his state. And he basically did this whole mystery shopping thing where he hired a firm to go around and call all the businesses that reopened that reopened after the lockdown to kind of reopen after the lockdown. You think he went through the top rated restaurants on, like, you know, what is it, like a TripAdvisor website, whatever it may be. Then he hired this mystery shopping firm who then went and sent their employees to go and basically survey these places and find out if they're abiding by or observing any of the kind of post lockdown, you know, hygiene requirements and cleanliness and all that stuff. And most of them aren't, right? Not because they don't want to, but because they haven't really been given any guidance or mandate to. And a lot of those food professionals think, hey, we work in food every single day. We're experts in our field. We know how to disinfect a place, right? You know how to make it safe and make it edible for people, right? An environment. So they're just unaware, and the government hasn't stepped in. So Mark Cuban's gone out of his way to not only not publicize the list. He's not trying to shame anybody. He's kind of got an action plan in mind that he's going to basically give these restaurants so that when they do reopen, they're opening as safe as possible. That's just one person doing it on his own. That's something the government should be doing, right? Imagine the UK should be doing the same thing. The UK should be contacting all these pubs and telling them, hey, here's what we think is the best way to go about reopening when things do reopen, the safest way possible, in order to kind of give people some confidence when they go out. Because that's another thing I realized too, reading this really great study. This was on, where's my phone? There we go. This is this is a little paper that I found on, an article that I found on Wall Street Journal via Twitter. And it kind of echoes the same thoughts. I think that Joey Diaz actually mentioned it on his podcast once, that a lot of the places that have reopened, they initially saw a spike in the States in terms of people coming back out and, you know, getting, you know, being thankful that their local restaurants open, bar, whatever it may be. But they've seen a big dip after the first couple of weeks. People have, you know, again, they're still worried about going outside. Consumer, what do you call it? What's that word? Consumer... They're still worried. I've got there's a term for it. I'm reading an article. The article kind of spells it out a little bit better than I would. Let me see if I can get it up on here. Bush. So it's from the Wall Street Journal, right? And it says the following. Because I can't read it on my laptop because I don't know why. Maybe I've used up all my free allotments of things, right? Oh, man. Yeah, it's not letting me do it anymore. Damn it. That's a shame. Anyway, it says something along the lines of they made a survey. And I think they surveyed 3,500 Americans, and they found out that most of the population, I think 58% of them, are still hesitant about going outside, right? Because they don't feel as if they've been given any reassurances, from the government or from these private businesses that they want to go and visit. So that's going to be a big part of the reopening run that everyone's going through. Like, how do you restore consumer confidence, right? How do you get people feeling like it's okay to go outside, because we're going to have to get back to some form of normality. We can't all be stuck indoors for the rest of our lives, but we're going to need to take some, you know, educated risks, and part of that is feeling at ease when you go places, knowing that, hey, they follow protocol, they know what they're doing, so you don't feel as if you're walking into a hornet's nest of viruses. I'd hope so, but again, what do I know? Anyway, let's move on. I got some topics I want to talk about. It's things that I've seen on the internet I thought were of interest. Thanks so much for everybody that's been locking in over the last few years. It's been nice to see the numbers go up little by little. Of course, if you want to support the show, the only thing I ask you to do is to smash that like button below and click subscribe if you want to see some more videos from me. Of course, if you like what I have to say and you want to leave me a question or a comment on the show, feel free to do that in the comment box on YouTube. And of course, if you're listening via the podcast app, the most you can do for me that I would really appreciate is if you make sure you share the show with your friends and leave me a 5-star review on whatever platform you're using, just so that it can help spread the show that I'm putting out there. That's the only thing I ask for. I don't want your money. I don't want your sympathy. I don't want your ass. I don't want your mouth. I don't want anything. All I want is for you to hit subscribe, smash that like button, leave me a comment, 5-star review, share it with your friends. Not many things, just 2 things there, just two things. Anyway, this is really funny, right? Let's move on to the show. Let's get into the chunks of the matter, right? This is LOL. So a lot of people hate this woman, but I don't really care. I guess maybe what should I give myself a blight for this? I guess because I spent so many years listening to absolute degenerates, right? In terms of the the comedian world of no, the podcast worlds of comedians or the comedian podcast. Yeah, the comedian podcast world, right? They're just degenerates, right? And because my humor is pretty dark, and for the most part, I've exposed myself to that whole. Remember that early 2000s social justice warrior thing that was going on, and college campuses beef, and Milo. Yeah, and when Milo was around doing his thing, because I've been so used to seeing that character. There's always a different version of them, right? We've got like a Nick Fuentes guy now who's kind of like, pissing people off online. There's always, they seem to like respawn. Whenever one goes away or kind of falls by the wayside, another kind of like right-wingy, controversial person comes out. And of course, the left has their ones as well, right? Left has the people that are obviously as fringe. Who's a woman that says I'm a fascist, obviously? Who's that woman? Marxist, I don't know, some Asian lady that's a bit nutty. Everyone's got in every faction, every kind of far left contingent has their sort of like lunatic fringe, right? People that just operate on the edge of society, and they're always, valuable for like some really crazy, peculiar sound bites. And I guess Kate Hopkins is one of those people, right? But social media seems to really hate her. I guess because I've been paying more attention because I'm at home and I've been, checking my phone more often. But I didn't know people hated her this much because it's so transparent what she does. She's obviously a troll. She's obviously a wind-up merchant. She gets a lot of pleasure out of pushing people's buttons. She seems to kind of revel in it. She's probably the first person I've seen who doesn't do. I don't think she even blocks people that much for the most part. She seems to retweet a lot of her insults that she gets. She'll say something really controversial. Like she seems to take pride in being a contrarian. Because, have you seen what Ann Coulter's been saying recently? Ann Coulter's kind of bucked away from the train, the kind of the Trump support train, and sort of like been saying a lot of derogatory things about Trump and his administration, his lack of action and stuff, and kind of calling out whether or not he's ever a Republican or not, saying that he hasn't delivered on his promises, blah, blah, blah. And obviously it seemed as if like she's kind of hit a bit of an awakening where she's sort of like, she's still that kind of, blonde bombshell fireball that she is, right? That, there's that kind of archetype of a Fox News host, right? An attractive blonde who kind of, looks like somebody that could bake you a pie, but also hates immigrants. She also has that side of her, but she's clearly kind of evolved to a point now where she's happy to call out either side, right? Because obviously she knows in this economy right now where things are getting super divisive, and if you can kind of carve out, especially if you've had a reputation of being, the queen of the vision, if you can somehow reel it back in and be somewhat neutral, you're probably going to gain a lot of fans. We see it with Tucker Carlson even, so he's doing the same sort of thing where you're sort of playing both sides and you're trying to hope that you can kind of get some people from the left to come over to your side, blah blah blah. So if Ann Coulter could do it, it makes me think that Kate Hopkins has the capacity to do the same thing, but she would much rather just be on the opposite side because it's much more fun for her. She just enjoys being a contrarian, and she just happens to be a Tory. I think that's what basically happens. She enjoys really kind of ruffling people's feathers. Whatever the public consensus is, she will obviously sway away from it. She had that weird thing where she was going at fucking Meghan Markle like for a prolonged period of time. She needs to have a bee in a bonnet about her. She hates Stormzy. Like, it's just a weird thing. She seems to have like a tendency to hate people with a different pigment of melanin in her skin for some reason. And I don't know what it is. She's got her issues or whatever it may be, but she's quite transparent. I just thought she was a troll. People on social media hate her. But I guess if you're not a fan of her, you're probably over the moon now because she's been permanently banned from Twitter. She's been kicked off the platform, deplatformed, as some people would say on the social media sphere. I'm not a fan of deplatforming. I think the more nutty and wacky you are, the more breathing room you should be given. I sort of look at people online that people want to get deplatformed the same way I looked at people that do that whole evangelists that go and stand outside the Oxford Street station and say, gay people are going to go to hell and all that sort of stuff. I think give them room, because if anything, it just exposes their ignorance. How many times have you walked past those people and no one's taken any attention to them? It's sort of like you've developed this weird internal mute system. When you hear those people screaming and shouting, you don't pay any mind to it. I'd imagine, even so for me, I'm straight. Imagine what gay people must think. They must not give a fucking fuck about what that person thinks, because it's none of their business how you live your life, right? They cannot judge you. So I don't really get why people want to deplatform people. What would you want? Would you want them to ban the preachers outside the stations? Some people will probably say yes, but I don't think so. I think the more oxygen you give them, the more you suffocate their actual points. Now people don't want to listen to you at all. I think that's what happens. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a young man from Stratford living my life. So this is the article. It says Katie Hopkins permanently banned by Twitter for breaking abuse and hate rules, which is funny, isn't it? That you get banned now and not before. I wonder how many chances you get given. So this is from Sky News. So the following, Katie Hopkins is permanently banned by Twitter for breaching its rules on abuse and hateful conduct. Hopkins, whose first rose to fame in the first series of The Apprentice, has become renowned for her airing controversial opinions on the platform and has previously been accused of using her account to incite racial hatred. The 45-year-old former LBC presenter, who has tweeted in support of the far-right figures such as English Defence League founder Tommy Robson, has her account frozen in January after a campaign by the Countdown's Rachel Riley. That's interesting, isn't it? Everyone hated Rachel Riley for a minute, and now Rachel Riley is somehow... This is weird. There's so much political infighting, right? It's all over the place. Rachel Riley is a social pariah. Then suddenly she becomes a person of love because she's hating a person that you like. It's very, very bizarre. I'm just shocked she's 45 because she looked far. Not to say, I know people are probably not into her regardless, but she looked way more attractive a few years ago. Then I don't know if it's because of the hate online and constantly being angry and tweeting vitriolic things and stuff. It must kind of do something to you. But she's sort of aged really quickly. Right, she went from looking like a middle-aged woman to somehow quickly looking like she's in the early 60s. I don't know why that was. Maybe because she's been abused in the tanning bed, or she just generally just doesn't take care of herself. But she really aged super fast. That's the only thing I'd be concerned about with her. If I was her friend, like, babe, like, you need to get off Twitter because it's making you get bare wrinkles. So it continues here. It says Twitter has suspended Katie Hopkins in the past for limited periods of time, but has now opted to banish her from the site for good, which I don't think is cool because it takes away from the public. Like, honestly, I think everyone has a right to have a voice in the public square. It's like, from back in the day, it just up top whether we listen to them or not. Muzzling them or sticking them in a dungeon somewhere doesn't change anything. If anything, it just makes... If anything, she's going to have more fans. She's going to have more people that are not fans of her come out in her defense because of the whole free speech thing, right? She says some ignorant stuff. She's a pretty hateful person. It's pretty obvious, but let her stew in her own shit. Don't you have family members that are really bitter and hateful? What do? You just avoid them. You don't go to their house often. Same with her. You're on Twitter. If you don't like what she has to say, just unfollow her or hide her tweets or mute her. It's not that hard, really. I don't really understand this whole thing about don't give her a platform. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And what is this platform that you speak of? These platforms aren't as I think people sometimes overestimate just how much influence said person's platform has. For the most part, we all have an element of confirmation bias. We all go out there trying to seek information that confirms whatever worldview we have. So if you don't agree with Kate Hopkins' worldview, it's very unlikely you're going to stumble across her Twitter feed and think, oh, actually, you know what? Those blacks, they need to go back to Jamaica. You're not going to say that, right? You're going to think she's an ignorant fool and you're just going to keep it moving. So to somehow take her off Twitter, I don't necessarily see what that does for race relations. I don't see how that is going to push things forward. I don't even see what good is going to come of it at all. Because the people that like her are going to follow her wherever she goes. She had, at the time of closing, I think she had like 1 million followers or something. I'm pretty sure. So there's still people out there that obviously do share her sentiment. And for some people to just ignore that or to think that's not true, it sort of has a similar sort of guise to the whole referendum with Brexit. They just didn't want to accept that there were some people in the country who, rightly or wrongly, let's say if they were like, oh, they were dumb, oh, they got hoodwinked by the government, whatever, right? Some people in this country genuinely thought Brexit was a good thing, so they voted for it. So somehow have a referendum because you don't think it was a fair vote or because people weren't informed enough, it's really, really entitled and super arrogant. I think so. You're sort of essentially, without you saying it, it's sort of like dog whistle for saying that, oh, you guys don't really know what you're talking about. Let's vote again because now we're going to shift it in our favor. It was really ill-advised. I'm happy it didn't happen because I think it would have been extremely embarrassing for the result to go the same way again the second time around. Then what would the Remainers would have said? I just don't understand it, man. It doesn't really serve a good purpose. It really kind of, if anything, it leads to more division, these sort of things. It's really ironic to say that because Kate Hopkins is, the queen of division or divisiveness, but I don't see what good this does. I really don't. But let's continue. It says, it's not clear what led to the company's latest intervention, but a spokesperson told Sky News, keeping Twitter safe is top priority for us. Abuse and hateful conduct have no place on our service. And we'll continue to take action when our rules are broken. That's the funny thing, though. They say that, but if you've got one follower and you just keep tweeting the most maddest opinions, but no one knows who you are, then what? They're not trying to keep it safe there. The safety only happens when you've got a volume, when you've got a platform, quote unquote, or you've got an audience. But haven't they ever thought that part of the audience that you have wants to hear what you speak about, regardless if it's really hateful? There might be some people out there that just share that worldview. They just have that opinion on immigrants. They have that opinion on Muslims, on Islam, on foreign affairs, on Trump, on whatever. They have really warped opinions of the world. It is what it is. Like, I don't see why that's a wrong thing. It's just really bizarre. I don't really understand that. And how far do you take that sort of thing, right? Kay Hopkins is okay, but Tommy Robinson's not. Like, where do you gauge where the level of vitriol, like, because a lot of those people, I think, because I follow a few of them, because I always like to have my Twitter feed to be quite balanced. I want to hear what the people on the left and people on the right are saying, right? And I've seen there's some people on Twitter, especially some of the right wingers ones that have, like, the Union Jack on their Twitter handle or whatever it may be, and they have Britain First on their bio. They're very clever at being well behaved. They know how to just say the right amount of vitriolic stuff, so they know how to, like, bait people in to kind of get a bit of banter and get a bit of a social engagement, make sure they get their likes up and all that malarkey, but also know what to say so it won't get them banned. They're very clever at kind of pulling it in. Maybe Kay Hopkins' error in that regard was that she was so reckless. She honestly thought she was untouchable. She thought she could say whatever she wanted, and she underestimated just how much people hated her. I think that's what she did. She really underestimated her. She thought that she was just some kind of pantomime villain, but no, you're not pantomime villain. We actually don't give a fuck about you. We want you to die, kind of thing. And I think she underestimated it. It continues to say, says, in this case, the account has been permanently suspended from violations of hateful conduct policy. Miss Hopkins has been contacted for comment. Despite being removed from the site, her name was top trending topic on Twitter, and she won again. She does it all the time. She does it. So something happens in society that we all kind of agree on. Rashford is going out there, taking time out of his busy schedule to ensure that kids kids from low income families are able to have school dinners for the next 6 or 12 weeks, whatever it may be. Right? He goes out of his way to do that, and guess what she says? Those families should think about not having more than one kid if you're poor. Do you know what I mean? She knows what she's doing, and you guys keep fucking falling for it. It's just insane. It's as if none of you guys have, like, shitty friends that say bullshit comments that you just kind of silence or air it out because they have other parts of their personality that you like. I know that she's not your friend, but come on, man. We should be able to pass through. We should be able to walk through a room full of people that we don't like without having to fight everyone on our way to the bar. It's just, come on. Anyway, it continues here. So she recently criticised Black Lives Matter movement online and sparked a Twitter feud with English footballer Marcus Rashford over his successful lobbying of the extension of school meals. She wasn't really a feud. She was going at him more, so he was just kind of ignoring it. Oh, and she went to the Black Lives Matter protest in London wearing a fucking disguise. How can you respect someone like that? She talks all that smack online, and then when she gets out in public, she has to put on a wig and a hat and do, like, eyebrow movements like, do you know what I mean? She wasn't even brave enough to show her face. Come on, man. And then you guys are getting triggered online. It's like, come on. It says previously Hopkins was written to the Sun newspaper and the Mail Online, which is interesting. She gets fired from everything, isn't it? She left LBC on 2017 following comments about the Manchester Arena attack. Mum, what did she say about that? Would she say you need to kill the Muslims? This woman is on a tear, innit? She reminds me of Adrian Durham. That's why I'm so numb to it. I've grew up most of my life listening to TalkSport and Adrian Durham on there, right? The quintessential shock jock. He'd say the most asinine, ludicrous thing. Now he's sort of walked it back. He's sort of become like a reasonable guy, I think, for the most part. But I don't really listen to TalkSport that much anymore. But I remember back in the day, I used to get so annoyed by it. And I remember my dad walking in one day, like, hearing me cussing at the radio, right? As Adrian Durham was talking, he's like, what are you doing? This is his job. He's here every week from 4 till whatever, right? This is what he gets paid to do. He gets paid to make sure the phone lines keep ringing. The more controversial his statements are, the better it is for his company. And you can go away, tune out, and keep it moving. Kate Hopkins is the same thing. What did she say about the Manchester Arena attack? Let me just see this, because I haven't actually heard this one. Okay, she doesn't have it there, but anyway, it doesn't matter. In the same year, she lost a libel case against food blogger Jack Monroe when she ended up paying $24,000 damages after suggesting they approved of defacing a war memorial during a protest in London. More recently, she's been associated with the conservative Canada organisation Rebel News. Hopkins still has more than 60,000 subscribers on her person. It's not really a lot in it, considering how long she's been out on the scene. Only 60,000 subscribers, where she uploads speeches and videos giving her opinion about current affairs. But my most funniest memory of Kate Hopkins, and something that I'm going to actually remember her for the longest time, is her appearance on Good Morning, right, with Philip Schofield and the other woman that's always like, right, that one. it was really funny. I think I think I actually got it already loaded up on. Let me see if I can get it. Actually, see it. There we go. Yeah. So this is the video, right? That made me. This is kind of what made me a fan of hers, because even in the face of, even when she gets confronted with her hypocrisy, she still has to maintain, you know, some semblance of like derangement. It's just incredible to see, and I loved it. I think she appeared on Good Morning. I think she was kind of like going ham about. I think it was probably a week of current affairs where celebrities were naming their kids crazy shit, and she came out with some asinine comment, and of course she got confronted by it, and it's just funny. This clip is fucking amazing. Let me play it for you guys now. Come on, get back to the start. Yeah, there you go.
You start to judge someone surname. You start to judge someone on their surname.
Well, as I said, I don't judge people on their surnames, but certainly I do make a very quick decision based on their first names. And there's a whole bunch of first names that I don't like.
I like the way she talks, man. As well, it's so funny. It's so like she's being such a wind up. I just don't understand. She's such a cunt. And also why you guys get annoyed by it. Like clearly a thing. Like. Like, she knows exactly what she's doing. It's just hilarious. Look at this exchange.
I don't like footballers' names. I don't like names after seasons of the year. I don't like geographical location names, celebrity names, things like Apple, things like, you know, Tilly Fizz or Jolly Apple, whatever they've decided to call their crazy.
Poppy.
My child's called Poppy.
Yes.
It's a flower. A geographical seasonal.
No.
They're not like Latin.
Look at her. She's just. That cognitive dissonance is amazing. She gets confronted by what? Her main. How she'd never thought about that is just some madness as well. But I guess it's the hypocrisy of humans.
What's the Latin name for Poppy? That would have been really posh.
Interestingly, though, other people have criticised me for calling her Poppy because they say Poppy's a naughty name. So parents do criticise each other.
Geographic stuff?
Geographic. Oh, so Brooklyn or London.
Your child's called India?
Yes, but you know, that's because she's
Oh, that's how I'm going to remember Kate Hopkins, man. That's how I'm going to remember that lady. Honestly, that's how I'm going to remember her. What a fucking legend. Honestly, you get confronted with your hypocrisy right in your face, right? And you still can't let it go. You're like, what? How can you be angry with people's geographic names and your kid's called India? Like, god damn it, man. But hey, what can you do? Let's move on. Next on the list here, we have... Oh, okay, yeah, news about the pub opening early. I'm all for it, man. Pub's opening early. I'm all for it. I want to go back into a pub and have a beer and sit down and watch men reminisce about their glory years. Bring it back. And like I said before, it seems like, you know, most governments around the world have really struggled working out a plan or putting something in place to ensure that businesses don't go under. Some sort of reopening plan. They don't really know what they're doing in that regard. I guess most of it comes from fear. They don't want to make a mistake and kind of prematurely reopen the economy and businesses and then get blamed for the deaths of thousands of people and then essentially lose their power and their position. That's what they're mostly worried about. They don't want to lose their seat. I guess once you finally do become part of the ruling class, you do have a seat in the Houses of Parliament and whatever it may be, you have some level of influence. There's no way you're going to let that go, in it, especially over something like COVID, that if you do take the precautions to be a bit safe and to play it kind of cool, no one's going to blame you for playing it safe, right? And being a little bit wary about opening business up again. No one's going to blame you. But I think they owe it to the businessmen, business people in the UK who have essentially propped up the economy with their small businesses to help them out in some way, shape or form, especially the pubs, right? The UK is, you know, we love our pubs, we love our bars, but we love our pubs more, right? They are sometimes a touch point for the local community. They serve as a meeting point for adults. They are probably contribute to a lot of really good mental health things, right? In terms of, you know, adults who might have, you know, essentially have their kids move away, they're alone, they don't really have much connection or human contact with people. So go down to your local boozer, get a pint and talk to your mates or talk to the locals must really do them a world of good. And I can only imagine how much they've been suffering through this period during the lockdown. So it's kind of a shame that the government hasn't really stepped in and kind of really put out a plan or made them at ease to some regard. So the general thing in the UK is that everyone's been told or has the assumption that everyone's going to reopen on the 4th of July. But a lot of the people that have been represented by the bars and pubs union, whatever it is, right, or whatever, the individuals have come out and said we need a bit more notice in order to kind of get things back up and running, right? Ordering stock, making sure your establishment is fit for use. Obviously, getting your staff off a furlough, maybe hiring a couple more if people are missing. They just need to get things up and running, right? They need to have a bit more notice than just a week or a couple of days. So they're kind of calling for the government to say something, but the government's been really hesitant to do so. I would have thought because we've lowered our risk level, I don't think, down to like alert level, down to level 3. So that might have kind of made things a bit better, and in a minute kind of notice would have gone out, but I've heard nothing so far. And this article kind of speaks about it on the BBC News that one pub chain owner has decided that regardless of what the government says, he's going to open on the 4th of July. So this is from the BBC News. It says pub chain has no choice but to open on the 4th of July. It says the founder of a pub chain, Oakman, has vowed to reopen all of his sites on the 4th of July, even if the government has not relaxed the restrictions. He says, we cannot wait for the government to make the decision. Peter Borg-Neal wrote on Twitter. The government has said pubs would not be open and reopen until July at the earliest under lockdown measures, but it has not given a definitive date for the reopening of pubs despite pressure from the industry. Mr. Borg-Neal's vow came as a British pubs trade body demanded a definitive date so that staff could be prepared. But some health experts fear that opening venues such as pubs and restaurants too early could increase the number of coronavirus cases, especially as outbreaks reoccur in countries such as China. To open without proper forward planning would be wrong, says Mr. Borg-Neal. Now, obviously that's true, right? We know from what we've heard now from the leading scientists that the virus seems to spread a lot more in enclosed areas. I think I read a report from El País, a Spanish newspaper, that basically highlighted some of the biggest outbreaks, I think, in Southeast Asia. And most of the outbreaks were in areas such as, meat factories, offices, what would you call them? Kind of a lunchroom sort of area, enclosed area where there's not much ventilation and people are kind of packed into one area. And, ventilation, poor ventilation is obviously another factor, and being in close contact with people, for a prolonged period of time. So if that's the case, that's a risk we're just going to have to kind of take in order to kind of restart the economy. And of course, bars and pubs could limit the amount of seating, make sure people are standing, require people to wear face masks if they're indoors unless they're drinking, blah, 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 blah. These things will obviously help to mitigate something, but you can't without the vaccine, there's no way we can restart the economy without taking some calculated risk. Some risk will have to be taken, just how much you're willing to take. And I guess from what we've heard online, or from what we've heard from reports, the service industries or the hospitality industry is gonna, like 3.5 million jobs or something stupid like that are gonna go if they don't reopen within the next month or so, right? I think hospitality accounts for over 20% of this country's GDP. Like, it's insane. So to kind of not take the full, to not take the kind of, to not take the reins on this and ensure something is in place is really, really, really big mistake from the government, I think. It continues here. It says, here, later told the BBC, this is Mr. Borg-Neal, that I'm not trying to be some reckless rebel. He said, we need to plan ahead, get staff off furlough, remove furniture, install hand washing stations, change layouts in pubs. You can't just give us a couple of days notice and expect us to open safely. Very true. He added, we would not open unless we thought it was 100% safe to do so. Oakman told BBC that he had not yet received any response from the government following his announcement, but they wanted to stop us. They would threaten with licensing review, in which they would need to show that we've broken licensing laws. I do intend to seek legal advice on this. And this is interesting because this is reflection exactly of what happened in America, right? Prior to the riots and the protest. Everyone had a lot to say when some of these businesses, especially in the South, were deciding that they had enough of the lockdown. The government weren't making things easier. The loans were hard to get. There was no protection. Their businesses were going to go under. They had to reopen because the tourism season was about to end. They had to get some kind of income into their business. So some restaurants, some bars decided to reopen against the orders of their state they live in. Some of them got shut down. Some of their business licenses got revoked. But the general consensus online was that these guys are reckless. Don't you know you're going to kill people? How about my grandma? Blah, 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 blah. Then suddenly the protests break out all over the world, right? And no one has a problem with all these people gathering outside, of course, for a very just cause. But the same amount of vitriol that was given to these business owners in the southern parts of the United States, you didn't get the same amount of vitriol to protesters, which is very interesting, right? Considering that the actual thing that's going to allow us to come out this the other side is these small businesses, right? As much as it's important for the states to have some level of police reform, right? I'm sure they're going to enact some sort of change in the end, right? These protests have served some level of good. I'm still a big believer if they never protest, I don't think George Floyd's killers and the police officers would have got charged, fired, or whatever, right? I don't think that would have been a thing. It would have been just another horrendous story we had on the internet, but nothing would have happened. I think the protests have really made a big change. It's kind of awoken people. It's changed the public conversation around police brutality. But you can't deny that the level of understanding people have towards the protesters wasn't the same they had with small businesses. It just wasn't. Continue. It says here, it says in a conflict situation. He says here, in a conflict situation, we might not open all the pubs immediately. I could just open one or two to see what they do, which I definitely agree with that approach. On March 21st, the government brought the regulations requiring pubs and cafe restaurants to stop serving customers food and drink for consumption on the premises. Mr. Borg-Neal said he would have no choice but to reopen in regardless in July, whether the regulations were still enforced or not. He said, we can hang around and definitely go bust or open to see if they destroy us. That's an easy choice to make though as a business owner, isn't it? Considering Oakland inns and restaurants have 25 pubs spread across the south of England and Midlands, with plans to open 3 more. The Department of Businesses, Energy and Industry Strategy has not responded to the request of comment. He says on Thursday, the British Beer and Pub Association set out demands in a letter calling for a definitive opening date for the government by Friday. Let's quickly see this. A pub in Guns testing a possible. Let's see. A bar in Milton Keynes testing a possible post-lockdown system. Let's see what that looks like. It says, could this be the pub of the future? What is it? No more queuing at the bar. Okay, lovely. This is nice. What happens there? People follow a one-way system to sit between the perspex barriers. Nice. Like, and you have a pub really in it. Got your little booth. The Betsy Wynn near Milton Keynes has been testing the layout. It did a trial service with furloughed staff and their families. How awesome does it, like, honestly, it's just with me, how awesome does that look, right? A group of friends sitting around the table, beer in hand, a couple of pizzas, sharing banter. Like, how nice is that? That's probably another silver lining of the lockdown. We've had an appreciation for the simple things in life, right? For those, I remember there was a thing when I was going away, when I was kind of traveling through South America and doing that whole thing, and that was a big thing about, wanderlust, and there was this kind of era of people following YouTubers who were going all around the world, and I'm gonna visit every country in the world, this sort of stuff, right? That was a big thing, right? About kind of seeking something else outside of where you live, right? That's where you will kind of maybe find yourself or find some sort of I don't know, whatever it may be. That was a big thing. And then I remember there also being a counter reaction to it of like, if you're not having fun where you're at, if you're not really exploring your local environment, that's, that's where you're spending most of your time at. That's basically the meaning of life, right? Trying to make the best out of the little that you do have, not going to other places to kind of seek some kind of fulfillment. And I guess lockdown has provided that. It's particularly reminded us about what really is important in our life, right? Our friends, our family, our colleagues at work, the little things that we do outside of work that bring us a lot of satisfaction, whether it's, going and doing a bit of window shopping, whether it's actually doing some shopping, playing computer games, playing football, skateboarding on the weekends, going clubbing. There's things that you actually love to do, but you sometimes just go through the motions. But lockdown has really shown you, hey, you need to appreciate this shit. It's not much, right? Going to a couple of festivals a year isn't as much as going to 10. Seeing your friends every weekend isn't the same as going IB for every weekend, but at least it's something, right? And it's really made you appreciate it. So now seeing this video of these people all jolly, sharing a drink, having a pizza, having a laugh, it just makes me think, fuck, that's the FOMO I'm having. Whereas prior to COVID, the FOMO I was having was not being able to go to Burr, not being able to go to fucking Coachella or whatever it may be. But now I'm just missing the idea of sitting inside some dingy, smelly pub somewhere, having a steak and having a laugh with my mates. It says Charles, let's continue the video. It says the results will help to inform the industry guidelines. Oh, look at the guy having a little piece. She's having a blast.
It's brilliant to be back in a normal environment. A sense of normality is what we need right now. There's been so much stress and pressure in staying in.
I had my beer here. It's just been long overdue. It's not the same having one at home, so yeah, it's been great.
It's like having a bottle of Coke at home, right? Have you ever? Because that's happened to me when I went to Central America. Most of the places in Central America, they serve you Coke either from a plastic bag that they fill it with ice and they put a straw in it, which just It's just, you can't describe how tasty that shit is. Or you have the benefit of going to a bar somewhere and they give you it in a nice chilled glass bottle. And it always tastes different than when you get it here. You can buy glass bottles of glass bottles of Coke in the UK. I think Morrison's, Tesco, all these places sell them, but they don't taste the same. They just do not taste the same. There's something about being in that environment that sort of, you don't know what it does. It sort of like makes it taste more. It makes it more tastier. I guess the same for a pint, right? You could buy yourself a fucking draft machine. You could buy yourself a bottle of beer. You could buy yourself a whole box of tins of beer, chill them at the right temperature, and pour them into a nice chilled pint glass, and it still wouldn't taste the same coming out from a warm tap somewhere in the middle of London. I don't know why. I don't know. It says pubs are closed for March to tackle COVID.
There will be a degree of reliance on customers being sensible, and for those that aren't, we might have to ask them to leave. But my expectation, based on 40 odd years in this industry, is that people will understand and they will want to work with us.
Agreed. The government said pubs will reopen July at the earliest, but we not heard anything so far, have we? Motherfuckers. But yeah, I don't blame the guy. Anyways, continue this article. End it here. It says, without this certainty, said by the end of the week, many businesses in the sector will be forced to cut lot costs to ensure they survive through the extended period of financial uncertainty. He said this could result in hundreds of thousands of jobs losses and permanent pub closures. It said that pubs and beer businesses are burning through 100 million every month in cash while they remain closed. That is insane. 100 million they're burning through. God damn it. It says these costs could tip many pubs over the edge unless they're given the clarity and confidence on when exactly they can open. Other pub bosses also joined in the call for clarity. Mark Davies, chief executive of the Hawthorne Leisure chain, said, "Our pubs are part of the social fabric of our communities, but there's so much our partners need to do to get ready for a reopening. From bringing staff off furlough to adopting new health and hygiene protocols and implementing social distancing measures, not to mention getting beer into the pubs from suppliers. If we were to stand any chance of getting the Great British pub to reopen by the 4th of July, it's imperative the government provide clearer guidance by Friday at the absolute latest. It's now Saturday. No fucking clarity. Insane, isn't it? That's what I mean about being working in government. It should be a requirement of like the job to understand how good you are at handling situations when the pressure's on or when things are not going your way, right? Or in kind of uncertain times. Being a good politician and knowing what to say when things are rosy is easy. Anyone can plan a street parade. But what do you do when we're in war? What do you do when there's civil unrest? How do you respond then? That's actually a real marker of your governance, not, the ability to put on a fucking V-Day celebration. Anyone could do that. But hey, what do I know? Move on. Next topic here. What do we have? Oh, the master debate is weird as fuck. This is funny. This is a clip from Joe Rogan podcast, who I'm a big fan of. Everyone's trying to cancel him and Joey Diaz, and I just don't understand. Do people understand what canceling actually means and what it requires? I don't actually believe cancel culture actually exists. I think cancel culture only doesn't exist if you're cash rich and you have 100 to 1,000 true fans. Have those two things, you can never get cancelled. Cash rich means that you can essentially absorb any loss of sponsorship or general public recognition and all that malarkey, right? You can withstand the blows financially from people dropping out and not sponsoring and giving you money or rescinding contracts. And of course, 100 to 1,000 true fans means that those fans more likely than not know who you are as a person. They've absorbed so much of your content over the years. They know exactly where you stand on issues. So for the most part, they won't be surprised when scandals come out. It's not going to really catch them off guard. And they're still going to be your fans, right? You only have to look at somebody like Louis C.K. Of course, in the interim, he did lose a lot of money. I think he said, he estimated something like 30 million, Louis C.K., right? He had a movie that was meant to come out that kind of didn't get a big theatrical release. He had a Netflix deal that went south. Loads of things got pulled out underneath the rug from him, right? But he was able to withstand the blows of cancel culture because, number one, he was cash rich. He had a lot of money that he could kind of survive by not working. And of course, he had 100 to 1,000 true fans who essentially, downloaded his stand-up comedy special that he put on his website just a few months ago. So sometimes I think people, these cancel cancel culture thing don't get it. Like Joe Rogan's one of the most successful podcasters in the world, if not the most successful podcast in the world. He just recently signed a 200, I think, million Spotify deal. If that's a marker of how much cash he has, he probably was estimated to make like 30 mil or something a year from podcasting alone. Is what we know of, not considering all of his other businesses that he's involved in, right? On it, his work he does for the UFC. I'm not sure if he still does it for free, but regardless, right? Like this guy's got his finger in a lot of pies. So to assume that you could cancel him for saying some racy jokes on his podcast after all these years, you just don't know how cancel culture really kind of go, how to really cancel somebody. You guys don't have no idea. Anyway, I thought this was interesting because this is a really funny debate that they had between Bill Burr, one of my favorite comedians, and Joe Rogan, where Joe Rogan essentially has that weird stance around masks that a lot of people have in the States. It's not really prevalent in the UK, in the Europe. I feel as if people that are not wearing masks in Europe or in London for the most part just decide not to wear it. I don't think they have this idea that it's a kind of a pussy thing or if it's a scare tactic. I don't think so. Maybe I haven't spoken to anyone that doesn't wear a mask. Don't get me wrong. I've not had long conversation with anybody this whole lockdown, but I would assume most people that don't wear masks are just like willing to take the risk, right? Because we all have the internet, we all have access to Twitter and social media. We all have the same access to the same information. So you just have to make a concentrated effort for yourself and your family to say, look, hey, if I decide to wear a mask, I do. If I don't, I don't. But in America, they have this weird split where it's obviously a political debate. It's like blue v red when it comes to mask, and it's also macho v non-macho. It's like a thing of like, oh, if you don't wear a mask, you're obviously a man, and if you don't wear one, you're not. And it's like, odd. And this clip is a good example of it, right? This is from the Joe Rogan podcast. I'm gonna play it here. Actually, I'll keep it off the screen so I don't get sniped.
The whole thing is, it's just fucking creepy to have guys like Mayor Garcetti be in charge of telling people whether or not they get to work. Like, that's not what a governor's supposed to be. That's not what a mayor's supposed to be.
They're trying to look out for your best interests and trying to get 400 million people to all pull in the same direction. It's fucking. You can't get 40 comics to pull in the same direction. So
but they did.
They have like an impossible. They did and they didn't. There was people fucking right the whole fucking time. There's been fucking assholes on my street walking around no masks.
And that's the issue, isn't it? Because there wasn't a I guess that's why I have a problem with all this, with people that are unwilling to have the debate around, oh, why did New Zealand do such a good job? They're like, oh, we can't compare them to different countries because, you know, they have a smaller population, it's an isolated country, the politics is different. No, let's have a conversation about why did some countries handle coronavirus very well and some countries didn't. Part of the issue is just compliance, right? Some people just, unfortunately, for the most part, maybe America's a really good example of it because there's so many conspiracy theory nuts out there anyway. If you have a whole country full of parents who generally believe in anti-vax and think, you know, vaccines give their kid autism, it's no surprise that these same people are also going to be shouting and screaming when somebody at Walmart tells them they can't enter if they don't wear a mask. It's no real surprise, really. But that's a conversation you should be having in public. Like, maybe we need to change the public conversation, the public sentiment around science. And it's not an exact science, but obviously it does provide some level, some framework, right? If you have a headache, you take an aspirin because it generally does work. To suggest otherwise is really asinine. But again, what do I know?
You know, not quarantining like the people that come by the houses. You see the fucking, you know, the same people that were going in and out of the house who are not part of their family still going in and out of the house.
You want people to walk down the street with a mask on?
Let's not start this, Joe.
Do you, though?
Let's not start this. Okay?
Let's start it.
I don't want to start this bullshit. I'm not going to...
And it's funny that Joe asks that, do you want people to walk down the streets? No, I want people. It's obviously... And again, this is the thing that's really bizarre, about, especially in the States. The people that want the economy to reopen the economy, let's get started. We can't live in fear. Go outside. I don't understand why they're so against masks. Like, if the only requirement that you have to go outside... Imagine if every government in the world said, okay, lockdown's over... Go outside and enjoy yourself. Celebrate like it's 1999, right? And they only require you to wear a face mask and to make sure you social distance, or to make sure when you meet people, they're only your close group of friends, whatever it may be. Is that so much to us for, really? To get back to some semblance of normality? Do people honestly think it's a good idea for us just to all go out en masse without any kind of protocols when it comes to hygiene and social distancing? Do you think that's honestly a good idea? Like, legitimately, with the virus still lingering? Or do people actually believe this whole like Trump rhetoric about it just washing away? It's not gonna wash away, right? That's not how viruses work, bro, friend. Have you not watched a movie lately?
going to sit here with no medical degree, listening to you with no medical degree, with an American flag behind you, smoking a cigar, acting like we know what's up better than the CDC. All I do is I watch the news once every 2 weeks. I'm like, mask or no mask? Still mask? All right, mask. That's all I give a fuck about. I don't care.
That's the thing. That's the same thing I do. I don't understand why. And I guess that's why I'm really happy that some shops have reopened. I generally think people just need to. The vast majority of the population, myself included, I'm a fucking idiot. I don't know jack shit. Right? I just barely graduated from university. I don't know whatever I'm talking about. The vast majority of us shouldn't be having debates about whether or not masks are essential to wear in public where the coronavirus lingering. We're not virologists, right? We have no right in this conversation. We should be sitting there silently nodding when intellectuals are speaking in the room. We have no right to say our opinion, to give our thoughts, or if we do have a right to say it, we shouldn't be expecting people to listen to us because we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. What we should be doing is checking in every week or so and hearing what the experts say, analyzing things for us to seeing hear what experts say, analyzing what it is with your situation, who you live with, where you go, blah, 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 and then making an informed decision like we always do, right? That's what you do in your day-to-day life. Right, you get given some guidelines by the government about certain things, and then you look at what you do with your own life, and you come to a really adult, grown-up conclusion. But you don't sit there ruminating and trying to convince yourself about what's wrong and pointing out all these things. That's a waste of time. Because that's not your business. You should spend your time doing the things that you're really good at, right? Whether it's pouring pints in a pub or delivering mail, whatever it is, that's what you should be spending your time on. Not worrying about, whether you should wear a mask or not. If they say wear a mask, you wear it. When they say don't wear it, you just take it off. No big deal.
Care.
But even they say you shouldn't wear a mask unless you're treating a coronavirus patient. The World Health Organization.
Yeah, but they didn't say that
literally
initially. They didn't say it initially.
No, they didn't.
They did, and then it gradually, and then wait, and then everybody wore the fucking masks. This is like rollerblading. Everybody fucking rollerbladed, and then there was that one fucking homophobic joke, and then everybody acted like they never did it. And then 100 million fucking rollerblades got thrown into the fucking ocean. We all wore masks, and then all of a sudden, people are fucking sitting there. Well, you don't have the body type for it, dude. Your fucking knuckles would scrape on the ground. Even with that extra 2 inches. I just love how wearing a mask became like this fucking soft thing that you were doing. Like being courteous. Being courteous. Why is it for bitches? That was so stupid.
You're wearing a mask. First of all,
oh God, you're so tough with your fucking open nose and throat. And your 5 o'clock shadow. This is a man right here. A man doesn't wear a mask. Why does it always become like that? It's always
Bill Burr's the best, isn't it? That's a great encapsulation of that incident. And again, I just don't understand it, man. Like, it's mostly a US thing. It's not. We don't really have it here in the UK. I don't think so. I think most people that are not wearing masks are just like, I'm just not gonna wear it. But it's a very bizarre thing, isn't it? That's a weird hill to die on, especially because it could legitimately lead to your death. It's like, but hey, what do I know? Move on. What else we got here? We're all going down to level 3. Of course, I mentioned that before. Let's talk about this. Driving is boring. Let's talk about this LA club opening. Come on, load up. So, this is a report from the Los Angeles Times. It's a really interesting article because there's a really macabre line here. Big up to Frankie from This Woman for sharing this article. This is how I found it. But God Almighty, I also have a need to go out. Right? Anyone that knows me knows that I'm a big fan of nightlife culture. I used to promote a lot of nights. I still DJ now. I like to go out a lot. I travel the world to visit some of the best clubs. That good stuff. Been to Burr-Neal too many times to mention. So this extended period of lockdown has really made me desperate and hungry to go to a dark, dingy warehouse somewhere with minimal to no light, minimal to no windows, loads of LEDs everywhere, people dressed in amazing clothes, dancing to a techno beat for 6 to 8 hours. I would love to do that, right? More than anything in the world, right? More so than having a steak and a glass of red wine. I'd love to go to a rave very, very soon. But some people are just really desperate to go outside, like legitimately desperate. So much so that they're going to put their own life to it. So much so they're willing to sign away their life, right? To give up on life just so that they can go somewhere and hear that pumping bass. And this article kind of speaks on it. It's really interesting. So this is from the LA Times. It says the following. This headline says, as LA reopens, an underground dance party draws revelers and worries health experts. And the open picture is a pictures a queue of a lady in a nice club-going outfit, lace leggings on, little hot pants, mesh top, and a dude wearing a face mask with a sort of skull thing on it, right? With his phone out, of course, I'm assuming with the resident advisor ticket app on it, ready to scan with his QR code. So there's the following excerpt goes the following. It says here, the following expert goes as follows. Whatever. So it continues. It says, at midnight on Friday, a security guard opened a fixed steel door into the South LA warehouse. Unfamiliar sounds of late poured out from the underneath. Music, laughing and dancing. Inside, the guard commanded, and slammed it shut behind the small line of weary but elated partygoers in a paisley print face mask. Ugh. A pink neon light beckoned them to a pair of masked ushers who checked the tickets for what is likely LA's first underground club night since the coronavirus lockdown began. Around a dozen techno fans clustered on a small outdoor patio next to an enclosed main dance floor. The crowd wasn't very big. At that point, far fewer than 100 people. But as more guests trickled into the see the dark techno DJ Akan perform, some looked around in giddy disbelief that it was actually happening during a pandemic. One woman, spritzing fellow guests with hand sanitizer as they walked in, seemed sanguine about the virus, which had claimed more than 5,000 lives in California. She said as follows, "I'm not worried. I've been suicidal since I was a teenager," she said in a macabre deadpan tone. "I guess I'm just not going to hang out with my grandma for a while." God almighty. That decision of like, I'm just going to cut off my grandma and essentially sign away my life just so I can go and party is fucking nuts. It's super, super cold, but super true in some regard. It's an accurate representation of people that live that lifestyle. If you're somebody that's a party goer, if you're somebody that commits to the don't forget to go home mantra, right? That famous documentary that sort of like opened my eyes about the underground techno dance scene in Berlin, right? It's a seminal documentary. Definitely check it out. It's mostly in German with subtitles, but it's fucking epic. You get to see a young Ricardo Villalobos and others on the documentary talking about their come up in the scene. If you're really committed to that lifestyle, then I guess this prolonged period of time that you spend indoors is just not acceptable, right? It's just something that you would, you're not going to give it up. So you would really throw your own family under the bus and essentially cut off any ties with them just so you can go and party. It's fucking nuts, but I think it accurately does describe a lot of people that go out. I think a lot of people, in a burger and queue would probably say they would do the same thing probably, but that is a mad line. It continues, it says, as COVID shut down, the concert industry and all nightlife since March, and artists, performers and fans have worried that the pandemic is an existential threat to their livelihoods and culture. Some have tried to replicate the experience with live streams or driving concerts, and even Coachella had a finally waved the white flag off for 2020. The concert industry could see its 12.2 billion predicted annual revenue all but obliterated this year, and musicians and nightlife workers often struggle to get unemployment benefits. For everyone, because I was included, for everyone that said there's too many festivals, now we know why, innit? If there's a 12.2 billion on the table annually, right? There's 12.2 billion worth of monies that you can collect, right? If you put on a good enough festival, if you do a good enough job, because again, festivals are really hard to kind of, to execute. But if you do it well, there's a lot of brand loyalty that comes with it, right? Primavera has been a good example. It's fucking one of the biggest commercial festivals in the world. But I've had a good time the first time, so I'm loyal to that brand now. I would just go there blindly and buy a ticket and go. And I'm sure others have done the same. So there's a lot of risk, but there's also a lot of reward if you're the promoter or the organizer of said festival. So now we know why it is. Every fucking club night, every club in London for the most part has put on some sort of festival they do during the summer, because there's so much of a market share out there for you to kind of claim, especially if people already trust your brand, they trust your establishment. They would be more than happy to go and attend one of your festivals that you put on. Now to continue, it says here, although Los Angeles County retail stores, restaurants, museums and gyms have been allowed to resume business despite the ongoing coronavirus outbreak, concerts and music venues are still prohibited from opening under the state rules and LA County roadmap of recovery. From major festivals to neighborhood rock clubs, no one can legally return to live events until Governor Gavin Newsom moves the state to phase 4 of his plan to reopen businesses. And everyone hates Gavin Newsom, especially people that work within the nightlife industry. They fucking hate that guy. So the polling said perhaps it's only a matter of time until someone decides to throw one. Anyway, so far, It says there have been no reports of accounts of other LA concert promoters holding similar underground events, but some promoters acknowledge they're considering how safely to produce their own events once regulations loosen. Is throwing a renegade concert with a pandemic still ripping through California, as young women put it, suicidal or inevitable, given the restaurants, churches, and casinos are filling up anyway? Question to be answered. In scholar, it says for public health professionals, even though those who are sympathetic to mass gatherings, like the recent protests against police brutality, congregating at a party indoors is head-spinning gamble. But that's the problem, though, man. Really, that the same level again. The protests that are happening now at the moment are probably more important than no. You said more important. It's not. It's stupid. The protests that are happening at the moment are very important for the current times that we're in. It's just unfortunate that they seem to be occurring at the same time a global pandemic is sweeping it's sweeping all across the world. It's just bad timing. But to suggest that one thing is less bad than the other is fucking ridiculous. They're both bad, right? You shouldn't be going out to parties during a pandemic, and you shouldn't be going to protest, because essentially we want to come out of this on the other side with as less fatalities as possible, with the economy still somewhat intact, so that you can go on a holiday. Because if the economy crumbles, there's going to be no planes for you to take anywhere, right? There's going to be no place for you to visit. Essentially, you're going to be landlocked for the most of it. So I don't really understand this kind of premise. But again, if you're committed to that lifestyle of going out and of seeking, existential moments on the dance floor, I understand why you'd kind of just be like, you know what, fuck it, let's just do the damn thing. But to be suicidal about it is just tough to handle, that one, isn't it? This is the following. Says it's a following quote from Dr. Tara Smith. She says, "Frankly, I think these are terrible ideas. I understand that everyone wants to get back to normal, but being in a small enclosed area in close contact with many others is one of the highest risk activities one can do. So is protesting with random strangers on the street for a prolonged period of time. Everything is dangerous when going outside, but we're going to have to take some sort of calculated risk. And again, I just think if there was some sort of directive with the governments or with these state legislators in terms of what happens next, it would make things so much easier. Because because everyone in the world has been kind of treated like a baby by the governments, right? No one went to come out and tell us in February that we were going to be in lockdown until August. They didn't want to say that, right? Because they didn't want to make people get disgruntled and kind of lose patience. They should have just told us from the beginning we're going to be in lockdown minimum of 3 months, right? So that you would get people to comply, so that they could go out sooner. Just say, look, we're going to be in lockdown for minimum of 3 months, but if you behave and you do as you're told in terms of staying indoors, we could loosen the restrictions, sooner. It gives people something to look for, a little bit of a collective, kind of incentive going on. And generally you have people maybe complying more so just through a selfish need to go out and to go have their festivities for summer. But they didn't do that. They just kind of, pulled us along 2 week increments, and now look where we are. It says the following. It says, inside the venue, the promoters took many of the obvious precautions. Masks were mandatory and hand sanitizers were abundant. The 100-person crowd was well below the capacity, even in the main dance floor, and the DJ stage was set way back to the fans. Smith, when told about the safety measures, was not convinced such measures were enough. He says, mask on everyone could help reduce the risk a bit, but even if many in the crowd were wearing them, I suspect they pulled them down to talk, likely in a very close proximity. If the music is loud, many will take them off to drink as well, she added. Will the artist be behind the plexiglass, tested for virus before performing? How are these being protected from the crowd and the crowd from them? We know that singing and shouting appear to help spread the virus further, that mere breathing and talking, which reduces additional risk. The event promoter, Xavier Perez, declined to comment, good boy, when reached by phone, but the headlining DJ veteran, LA Techno producer Axcan, alias of Federico Sanchez Leiva, said he felt confident in the party's security measures and was happy to play. He said, I was clear with it's funny that the promoter doesn't want us to talk to the paper, but the DJ does, isn't it? That's self-promotion, man. You got to get your name out there. He said, I was clear with the promoter that if it doesn't look safe, I'm going to have to cancel. He said, when I got there, I was worried it would be packed, but everyone had enough space to walk. The stage was the only time you go on DJ where you kind of want a smaller crowd, right? Because no one wants to headline a night where everyone gets corona and dies, right? You don't want that on your legacy. You don't want that to be on your rap sheet. You don't want RA to write about you like that, do you? He says, when I got there, I was worried it would be packed, but everyone had enough space to walk, and the space was secluded in the back with a big opening to the outdoors. It felt safe enough. I was a little worried in the morning, like, am I okay? But to be honest, it felt great. I bet it did, man. That's him there. Sanchez Levi, who's a producer, performed electronic music for 2 decades and toured across the globe, said he was sympathetic to the techno fans starving for the community and to artists who desperately need to play to make a living. He said, this is the longest I've ever not played in 5 years, but I was worried as well. I'm not 20 20, and the older you are, the more chances of the virus getting worse. I was a little nervous, but I was also wanting to support the tender community. Everyone's eager to get out there. Safety is everyone's responsibility. The promoter has to do their best, but you're responsible for your own safety. I agree with that one. But yeah, mad article, innit? That girl at the top there, man, that's a fucking line and a half, innit? I'm not worried. I've been suicidal since I was a teen. I guess I'm not going to hang out with my grandma for a while. God damn it. Sobering, innit? Anyway, let's move on. Last one to talk about. Swift Club, a club in Switzerland reopened, actually, the other week, which is fucking sick. This is from RA. RA News here says Swiss club scene reopened slowly with a low capacity event, no social distancing. It says, Switzerland club scene is slowly reopening after laws surrounding events loosened on June 6th. Latest restrictions, which follow a decrease in a new case of COVID-19 to about 30 or fewer a day, allow indoor events of up to 300 people with a midnight curfew. Venues are permitted to ignore the normal social distancing rules, and so long as everyone participating in the event is made aware and submits their contact details. Clubs nationwide, including Audio Club, Folklore, Nordstrom, Elias, and Supermarket, that's a good name for a club, have taken advantage of this Swift policy. The Swiss Chilean DJ Luciano, I've not heard his name in ages. Remember when Luciano was a big deal? I still remember there was a video. I think who was it? Might be Carl Craig and Luciano playing in some festival somewhere. And I think Luciano must have annoyed Carl Craig and he's just super angry with him. He doesn't talk to him, doesn't say anything. They're playing back to back. He just won't look at him. Because Luciano keeps trying to engage in conversation, say something, and Carl Craig just won't look at him. I think it's Carl Craig. I think so. One of those Detroit guys just won't look at him. It's just a really funny time. I guess it was when he was on it a lot more. I think Luciano's sober now. I remember him saying at some IMS panel thing, he was talking about him kind of getting sober and cleaning up his lifestyle. But yeah, that was a big moment, man. Back in the minimal days, right? Him touring, coming to Fabric all the time, right? The kind of hand ring and the swirling around, the whistling. He's an icon, man, behind the decks. That's an icon. And it continues. It says, Luciano, who lives in Lausanne, headlined the events at Weetamix, another good name for a club, and D Club last weekend, where the capacities were 100 to 300 respectively. That's probably the smallest club he's ever played in. And he's always playing big venues. Both parties ran from 6 p.m. through to midnight. So I'm guessing a place like Printworks in London will probably be a good place to reopen quickly, innit? It's big enough to allow people to kind of move around in, and they can also close at like a reasonable time, right? Because it opens around 1 to 12 anyway. It says, it continues here. It says a quote from him. He said, "It was a phenomenal feeling. A true sense of hope," Luciano told the resident advisor. "We weren't sure if the events were going to happen, if the police were going to come and shut us down. There were some rules. There was hand sanitizer and some people were wearing masks at the beginning. There was some separation on the dance floor. But after 3 or 4 hours, people were getting closer." It says here on June 24th, Switzerland's Federal Council will decide whether to ease restrictions further and allow events up to 1,000 people. So I guess if you really want to go out and save your summer, you probably have to go Switzerland. He says larger events are currently banned until August 31st. Overall, the country has tallied more than 31,000 cases of coronavirus and nearly 2,000 deaths, which is far less than what we have in the UK. He says as lockdowns has continued to ease around the world, indoor social spaces like bars and clubs have been found to have the highest risk of spread. In early May, authorities in Seoul shut down a club following the spike of a COVID-19 case. And here's a clip actually of Luciano playing. So cool to look at that side when you actually I miss it so. Video here. Oh, they're very close behind the decks, isn't it? Of course, Luciano doing the international sign of the community, hugging some random behind the decks. I don't know if he's the owner, if he's another DJ, but that's kind of the thing. He's not really changed that much. He's playing style, same shit. How fun that looks, though, man. God damn it! Take me back to the clubs. Take me back. I've had enough, man. No more live streams. Death to live streams unless it's whore Is that how you pronounce it? Hoer, Hoer, in Berlin. Listen, that no more live streams. Live streams are over. I'm fed up of live streams, and came back to the clubs. If it's not a club, I don't give a shit. Yeah, nice to see Switzerland back up and running. Hopefully, we have some news in the UK very soon. But yeah, Switzerland nightclub scene slowly reopens with low capacity events. Oh, I'm so jealous. Anyway, that's an hour of the Agostinho Zinga show. Thanks so much for tuning in as per usual. If you liked what you're hearing, of course, smash that like button, hit subscribe, leave me a comment down below. If you're listening via the podcast app, leave me a 5-star review and share with your friends. I'll see you guys again next week. For now, enjoy your weekend. Be safe and all that malarkey. Take care. Be all right. Add me on social. Right? On social media. Add me on Instagram. Agostinho Zinga, all one word on Instagram. On Twitter too. Agostinho Zinga, all one word. You can find my URLs in the description box down below if you're watching the video. And obviously in the description box if you're listening via the podcast app, click the little eye wherever you're listening it to. If it's on Overcast, on your podcast thing, on Spotify, you'll be able to click on descriptions. You see my social media thing. Make sure you follow me on there so that we can connect. But until then, see you later, guys. Be safe. Take care. Peace.